So now, here with more on his plan to make America great again, the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump. Mr. President, great to have you back, sir. How are you?
Well, thank you very much. That is some list you read off, and you can probably double and triple it. It's so bad. I don't think we've ever been in a position like this. It's terrible what's happened to our country in 3 years.
Well, let's start in Iowa, though. The largest margin of victory prior to your 30-point win on Monday was Bob Dole in 1988 with about just under 13% victory margin. This is historic in so many ways. How do you analyze this? What happened? Why was this bigger than any other Iowa caucus?
Because the Biden administration is so bad, and we now have a contrast. You didn't have a contrast so much before, and now you have a contrast. Why? What happened? You know, we get the most votes of any sitting president in history, and then somebody else takes over, and they take a look at what we had versus what they have now. And the difference is so stark. It's so massive. It's so different. The country is a different place. We were respected all over the world. We got the largest tax cuts ever, the largest regulation cuts ever. We rebuilt our military, Sean. We did everything, even right to try. You know what right to try is? If you're able to use some of these incredible new drugs that they're making, bio drugs and other drugs, and people's lives are being saved. You never could do it. You'd have to go to Asia. You'd have to go to Europe, different places all over the world. Now you get them here, and that was a hard thing. 58 years they tried to get that. If you were terminally ill, they didn't want to give you a drug, even if they thought it might work, because they said, we don't want to hurt the people. I said, no, they're terminally ill. We're going to do something, and we got it done. It was not easy either, because the drug companies, nobody wanted it. The country didn't want it. They were worried about liability. People now sign a document. There's no liability, and they can take these drugs. And, Sean, we're saving thousands and thousands of lives. It's been an amazing miracle. We did so much, and you would have never had Ukraine. You would have never had the attack on Israel. None of these things, and you wouldn't have had inflation because I had oil so low. And now we have the exact opposite. We have a mess. We have the worst president in history.
Well, let me ask you this, and I love the state of New Hampshire. I love the people of New Hampshire. I don't like their primary system for one reason. They have what's called an open primary. Already we know that nearly 4,000 Democratic voters have switched affiliation to Republican or undeclared, meaning independent, ahead of the primary, according to the Secretary of State's office. And it is believed, for example, one woman who's on a co-chair of Nikki Haley's campaign, her own daughter, a Democrat, changed her affiliation from Democrat to Republican to vote for Haley in the primary. But even Governor Sununu, not a friend of yours, told our own Neil Cavuto that it's troubling that many of these people that will switch as Democrats and turn to independents and vote in the Republican primary, that when push comes to shove, that they would choose Biden in the end over any Republican. I'm not that fond of that system. Does that concern you? The Real Clear Politics average has you up by 13. The Suffolk poll just out today, I think, had you up by 16. There was the CNN poll that had you up by 7. Does that system bother you?
It bothers me, and the governor should have done something about it instead of talk and waste his time with Nikki, because she's not going to make it. She has no chance. She's got no way. MAGA's not going to be with her. And, you know, when you said the Democrats voting, no, it doesn't say that. It said about Nikki that 50% of the Republicans would be lost to Nikki, only to Nikki, not even to Ron DeSanctimonious. So, you know, it's a bad thing for her, but it's a bad thing for us. Who has a system where Democrats are allowed to vote in the Republican primary? And New Hampshire's an incredible place. I love the people. We won New Hampshire last time. It was fantastic what we did. And, you know, we have great spirit, great everything. But you need a system. You need a governor that's going to get it changed, not just talking about it. He's been talking about it for 4 years, never got it done. So Democrats are allowed to vote, which they're going to vote for her because they don't want to run against me. They want to run against her. You know, it's a very simple system. We are leading Biden in every poll. Michigan just came out. We're leading by 11. Georgia just came out. We're leading by 13 points. We're leading everywhere now. And she's not. You know, she has one obsolete poll that she likes. She's about 2 months old, where she was leading Biden. Well, those days are gone. She's not leading Biden anymore. The problem is the Democrats want her to run desperately, so they have a lot of Democrats signing up in New Hampshire, but I don't think it's going to matter. I saw one where we're at 50 or 51, and she was at 34, I believe. And I think we're going to be in very good shape like we were. And if you look at Iowa, nobody knew we were going to blow it out like that. You know, we were at, I think it finishes off close to 53. We won by 30 some odd points, and nobody thought that was possible. We doubled the all-time record, more than doubled, I guess, the all-time record. I think a similar thing's going to happen here. But here, independents and Democrats are allowed to vote. So in order to try and stop Trump, they go out and they sign up, and they can sign up very easily. And Sununu should have stopped it.
Yeah. Let me ask you, I mean, you got a lot of praise for your speech, your victory speech in Iowa, and people noticed that you were particularly gracious. I noticed in the town hall, the last town hall we did together, the one you did with Brett and Martha, that you seem to have taken on a more gracious tone, if that's the way to say it. Maybe the question I get asked most often, I've asked you this question before, you know, why is Donald Trump always fight so hard? Dennis Miller brought this up on the program last night. A little bit of humility with Donald Trump will go a long way. Yes, he's been persecuted. His family has suffered. He's suffered. Yes, it's been unfair, but he fights hard. He loves his country, and sometimes maybe you shouldn't be as personal. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I know it, and I know it very well, but we also have to win, Sean. If I were a different type of person, I think I would have been out of office a long time ago. You wouldn't have even gone through it. They hit me with Russia, Russia, Russia before the election even. I mean, if you look at it, it was before the 2016 election. It was all set up. And I fired Comey. I did a big job. We got rid of a lot of the deep state. And I will tell you, you know, then we had the COVID come 2.5 years later, but nobody ever had a better economy. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We had the strongest border in the history of our country. I built over 500 miles of wall. We got Mexico to give us 28,000 free soldiers, free of charge. Not that easy to get, by the way. I had to do a lot of maneuvering, including tariffs and other things to get it. But we, you know, by the way, speaking of tariffs, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China. And of that, we gave $28 billion to our farmers because they were abused by China. What China did to our farmers was horrible. And we did a great job for our country. You know, again, the largest tax cuts in history. The Democrats want to double up and triple up on the taxes. They want to double your taxes and triple your taxes. I got you the biggest, bigger than the Reagan tax cuts. You and I were talking about that the other day. And you called up about the Reagan cuts and our cuts. Our cuts were substantially bigger. We got rid of the death tax or the estate tax for farmers and small manufacturers. You know, I mean, what we did was an amazing thing.
Those tax cuts.
And getting back to your one part of the question, though, we did all of that, and we had to fight off all of the witch hunts and the scandals and the horrible these people, what they did. Russia, 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 Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. 51 intelligence agents saying that the laptop from hell was created by Russia, not by Hunter Biden, okay? It was Hunter Biden all the way. They lied to Congress. They lied to everybody. 2 impeachments that went nowhere. They went absolutely nowhere. But, I mean, if I were a softer individual, and I'll tell you something, Ron DeSantis or Nikki or anybody else, if they were in my position, if they were here, they would have been hit just as hard. These people play tough, much tougher than the Republicans play. And the Republicans have to get tougher. But Nikki would, I know Nikki very well. She worked for me for a long time. She would not be able to handle that position. She would not be able to handle the onslaught. With all of that being said, within the Republican Party, I want to bring unity. And within the nation, I want to bring unity. And, you know, unity is going to come from success, because when we had this country prior to COVID, and then even after COVID, but especially prior to COVID, the China virus coming in, we had the most successful country ever in history. There's never been anything like it, what we did. And you know, the other side was calling me, and they were coming to me. They wanted to talk. It was all coming together. Success will bring everybody under the same tent.
You know, I covered all of that. I cannot disagree with you. And frankly, this show, me personally, I've been vindicated, because as many networks peddled their lies and conspiracy theories, we day in and day out, we were peeling every layer of the onion. We got the Russia hoax right, as vindicated by the Horowitz report, the Durham report. I do want to ask you this. The last time I interviewed you, I asked you if you think that Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee, and you said no. Do you still feel that way? And if you don't think it's him, who do you think is likely to replace him?
Look, he can't put two sentences together. He can't find the stairs off a stage, which there are a lot of them up there, believe me. They're all over the place. He can't find his way off a stage when he makes a very short speech, and it has to be short because it can't be long. He can't negotiate. You look at what's happening. The whole world is blowing up. You know, Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, very tough guy, smart guy, brilliant guy, very respected, but tough. They asked him, what's going on with the world? He said one thing, very simple, bring back Trump. When Trump was here, everybody was afraid of Trump. Now, I don't want to say that because I don't like that word, but he said it. He's probably the toughest leader over there, one of the toughest anywhere, but highly respected and knows he gets it. He said, you bring back Trump, it's all going to disappear. They all respected Trump, and they were afraid of Trump, but they all respected Trump, and it's true. Putin would have never attacked Ukraine. I got along with Putin. You know, it's good to get along with people like Putin and like others. You take a look at what's going on with China. They're just licking their chops right now to go into Taiwan. That would never even have, they wouldn't have even thought about it with me. And I had talks with President Xi. I have a great relationship. If Hillary Clinton would have won, you would have had a nuclear war with North Korea. Kim Jong-un, I got along with him too. Nobody ever got to talk to him except me. And I got not only talked to him, I got along with him great. It's good to get along with people that have massive nuclear weapons, and they have a large nuclear stockpile. So
well,
I did a job.
But if you go back,
I did the job, and we made America great again. And these people, what they're doing to our country, they're allowing millions and millions of people to pour through. It's an invasion into our country, and they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums and prisons are being emptied all over the world, not just in South America. All over the world, they're being emptied out into our country. We're like a dumping ground. And you know what else is coming in? Terrorists are coming in, and we have to stop it. This
Mr.
next
President,
11 months or 10 months is a very dangerous period.
we have been able to count the numbers of people coming from Iran and Syria, thousands from Egypt, thousands from Afghanistan, 12,000 from Russia, 26,000 from China, showing up at our southern border. Nobody's ever going to convince me that that all of them are coming here for a better life for them and their family, and amongst them are not people that have nefarious intentions. Let me ask you this. Usually after 4 years, a president can ask a question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? I don't think Joe Biden can run on that. As a matter of fact, they have pretty much telegraphed what they're going to run on. Democracy in peril. Trump is evil, Trump is evil, Trump is evil, and dangerous, and you've got to fear him. January 6th, and then the usual playbook. Republicans are racist and sexist and have every phobia known to man, whether it's real or not, and they want dirty air and water. That's all they've got. I don't see any one issue that Joe Biden can run on. What will your answer to their predictable attacks be?
Well, that's all they have is right, because their economy's been terrible. The inflation is destroyed. Anybody that made even a little more money, even a lot more money, it more than got eaten alive by inflation. When you look at the price increases of energy, of housing, and I mean rental housing. I looked the other day, it's up almost 51%. The cost of bacon quadrupled. All of these things, I mean, food costs, clothing costs, it's so much that no matter what you're making, it doesn't matter. You know, inflation is known over the years, over hundreds of years. It's known as a country buster. It breaks countries. It broke Germany. It broke a lot of countries. We've had the worst inflation we've had, I think, in 78 years. You know, they say 52. It's probably more than 78. It's been a disaster, and all in the wrong places. I had no inflation, and I had the greatest economy ever. We had gasoline at $1.87. Now it's $4 or $5. But by the way, they're working together with other countries, sadly, because it's artificial, because they're going to give it up right after the election. You've seen that before. But they're working to get gasoline prices down. It's an artificial reduction. But the gasoline was up to $6, $7, $8 a gallon. And it still is very high. It's much too high. But we had the greatest economy in history. And what else did we have? No inflation. We had the safest border in the history of our country. And it was like a beautiful thing was taking place. We had a border, and I got Mexico to do a lot for us. Now Mexico's saying we want $5 billion just to talk. Mexico wouldn't have talked to me that way. I have a great relationship with the president, but Mexico, they had to pay a lot. You know, they gave us 28,000 soldiers free of charge to guard our border. And when I first presented that to them, they laughed. They thought I was kidding. But through a series of negotiations, they gave us everything we wanted. Stay in Mexico. Remember, remain in Mexico? That was me. Remain in Mexico. Nobody can come in. They remain. You think Mexico was happy about that? They gave it to me. Catch and release in Mexico. I call it catch and release in Mexico. We had catch and release in the United States, and Mexico did that. They gave us things that nobody can believe. The State Department couldn't believe it. The Border Patrol people, they couldn't believe it. Nobody could believe it. Nobody could believe it. You know, if you talk to Tom Homan, and if you talk to anybody from Border Patrol, and they have great people, they'll tell you the greatest president in history for the border, for immigration, was Trump. Not even a contest. Not even a contest.
Yeah. Let me ask you about these states that are trying to remove you from the ballot. I mean, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? A party that is making an argument that democracy is in peril couldn't be more undemocratic as they try to remove your name from even running and even having your name on the ticket. Now, I don't think this is going to hold. I have to believe the Supreme Court will intervene. If there's real justice, it should be a unanimous 9-0 opinion, in my view. But what is your reaction? Because you're the person they're trying to kick off the ticket, but they're the ones claiming you're not democratic. Pretty ironic.
Well, we put on 3 great justices, and you have some other great justices up there, and they're not going to take the vote away from the people. I mean, right now, you saw in the history of the Iowa primary, I mean, the history of it, goes back a long time. I won by the most. Nobody's ever won, as you know, because you covered it very well, but everybody covered it. Even the bad reporters covered it this way. There's nobody even close. I doubled up and more than doubled up the second best, now the second best. It stood for a long time, as you know, that record. But they want to make sure, I'm sure the Supreme Court is going to say, we're not going to take the vote away from the people. Now, Biden is a threat to democracy. He's an absolute threat to democracy. He's very dangerous for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's grossly incompetent, which is the number one reason. But he's also, actually, in his own way, it's not him. It's the people that surround him. You got some very bad people surrounding him at that desk. You have people running the Department of Justice surrounding him. They're young and they're smart and they're communists and they're Marxists and they're fascists. And they're running this country. They're running it right into the ground. But I don't think the Supreme Court would do it because you can't take the vote. You know, I'm leading in every poll. I'm leading Biden, but I'm leading the remaining Republicans. There's 2 of them, and they're barely hanging on. How can you possibly take the vote away?
I mean, just in the last 2 days, 2 credible polls. Suffolk and St. Anselm were right. Suffolk nailed your number in, I think they were off by 1. They had you at 52, not at 51. They have you up, I think, by 16 now. St. Anselm has you up by 14. These are the most recent polls. These are post-Iowa polls.
Well, that's Sean, that's in New Hampshire. But if you look at the national polls, in New Hampshire, we're doing great. And take a look at the national polls. I'm up by 65 points. I mean, 65 points, and I'm up by 11, 12, 13 points on the Democrats.
I know you have to run to an event. And by the way, our deepest sympathy to the First Lady on the loss of her mom. Please convey that to her for us.
Well, thank you. She was a great woman, Sean.
What is your closing message to the people of New Hampshire?
It's very simple. It's make America great again. But I think very important, before we do this, because you were talking about the Supreme Court, they have 2 votes that are very important coming up. One is, as we discussed, we call it Colorado or whatever, but you know, I really believe they're going to leave the people to vote. Again, you're the leading candidate in both parties. You're leading the Democrats by many, many points. I mean, it's hard to imagine they would do. And most states have already approved it, as you know. Very few states have done that. This is Colorado and a couple of others at this moment. But they have another important, and that's immunity for the president. The president of the United States, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about any president, has to have immunity. Because if you take immunity away from the president, so important, you will have a president that's not going to be able to do anything. Because when he leaves office, the opposing party president, if it's the opposing party, will indict the president for doing something that should have been good. Like Obama dropped missiles and they ended up hitting a kindergarten or a school or the apartment house. A lot of people were killed. Well, if that's the case, he's going to end up being indicted when he leaves office. He meant well. The missile went in the wrong direction. And other things. Look at Biden. What would happen to Biden? He's killed our country with his policies. The border is a disaster. Everything he does is a disaster. What he did in Afghanistan is the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, giving them $85 billion worth of equipment, killing our soldiers, wounding horribly our soldiers, and leaving people behind. Well, when he leaves office, if he doesn't have immunity, now, I think it's horrible what he did, but he probably, I don't know, it's hard to believe, but he probably meant well. It's hard to believe that he meant well, but the man is incompetent. But you have to leave immunity with a president. If a president is afraid to act because they're worried about being indicted when they leave office, a president of the United States has to have immunity. And the Supreme Court's going to be ruling on that. If they don't have immunity, no president is going to act. You're going to have guys that just sit in office and are afraid to do anything.
By the way, it is ironic. It took you a long time. You were once critical of me for pointing out Joe's cognitive deficiencies. I think it's very transparent now for the world to see. I was more right than I thought I was. We're looking forward. We'll see you in New Hampshire on Tuesday. We really appreciate your time. Thank you, Mr. President, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, Sean, one thing. I wasn't critical of you. I was critical of you joking about it. I wasn't critical of you.
That's true.
I didn't think you should be joking about it.
I did. You know what? You were right at the time.
Give you a little correction, but that's okay.
I took it to heart. I mean that. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
I know that.
Appreciate your time.
I know that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.